Let's have a listen to Senator Jide Ibrahim, who had something to say about why the Nigerian Senate stepped down, considering the president's proclamation of the declaration of a state of emergency in River State. We'll be back with more insight on this development. Join us again.
The Senate is a democratic institution, and the Senate has given room for more members who is not aware of this yesterday but got to know about it today to be able to come tomorrow and air their views. Democracy is about numbers, it's about participation. So what we are saying is that we can adjourn it tomorrow. We know how to give room for more people to come. We formed quorum today, 68 people who are trying to register. They do not accept 17 leaders of the Senate to rate. We are more than a quorum. We could as well go on. But we don't want to say about, oh, it was 3 o'clock, they brought it when members are already praying, they are fasting, and then there were not many people on the floor. That's the time they pass the proclamation. No. First thing tomorrow morning, information I got to other members, some members are fasting, they are praying in their homes. Tomorrow they will be here, and then by 10 o'clock, we pick it up. We are intending with Mr. President. I am intending with Mr. President, because these borders with life and security. We don't joke with life and security. You know, like I said, Thomas Hope said, life of human being will so not poor, British. And then of course, it will be, unheard of if the Leviathan will stop doing nothing when it's supposed to do something when there's a threat to life and property. And let me say, the president did not dissolve democratic institutions. The president only suspended for 6 months. And these 6 months will enable parties to go to the table, iron out their differences, and come so that there can be peace in Rivers State and by extension Nigeria. So I think the president have acted in accordance with the constitution. The Professor Obawambeze, who said clearly that the president of Nigeria has right to duty to protect and enforce the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. To do otherwise will be disastrous.
Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. You heard the thoughts of Senator Jide Ibrahim there, speaking to the developing issue in River State, saying that the Nigerian Senate will do its due diligence in considering the president's proclamation with regards to what's happening in River State. So they stepped down when the matter came up for deliberation, saying that, listen, they don't have all of the numbers and they're trying to get every senator involved in the process. In the House of Representatives, they also stepped down this deliberation, even though there were some skirmishes with regards to the exchanges of some female House of Representatives members who I guess were a little too close to this developing issue. Well, let's speak to the political side of it, which many would agree gave birth to this whole scenario that we're dealing with in River State. Joining us on the program is public affairs and political commentator Mr. Jide Ojo is joining us to provide some context to this side of the discussion. As always, a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure too.
Right.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you so much for that. Help me understand what you think of what has been a rather tumultuous 24 hours so far, from the president's nationwide broadcast to what has happened since then, the appointment, the swearing in of the sole administrator, what this means for Nigeria's democracy. Every political figure has had one or two things to say regarding this particular one. What do you make of the circumstances around this development?
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to Nigeria on this platform. I've been doing media around since daybreak. It's been very hectic.
Right.
But nevertheless, I am of the considered view that the situation has not matured to the point that you declare state of emergency because of the ripple effect. Yes, people may say the president acted in a proactive manner. Proactively, so that to avoid the breakdown of law and order. But even if that is the intendment, we know who are the dramatis personnel. And I believe that the dialogue options have not been fully exhausted. Two things I've prescribed since about last week that I've been doing a lot of media engagement on this issue. I've called persistently that the president knew that the foot soldiers of this, of the FCT minister and the governor are the one the dramatist personnel in this. So while it is true in his speech yesterday that he has tried to mediate, he only did that once, and that was December 2023, where there was a very huge crowd that were brought in from Rivers, and there was an 8-point resolution, which I wrote about in my column in The Punch. And when that was not yielding, the president never initiated another one over the last 1 year plus. Now, last week, the PANDEF leadership went to him, and he said, go and tell the governor to implement the Supreme Court decision of February 28th.
A couple of days before the announcement.
The announcement. So, okay, the PANDEF people met with Fubara, but the FCT minister never wanted to meet with them, evaded meeting with them. And you heard the rhetorics of the FCT minister last week on a live television, where he was calling everybody names, unprintable names, calling a governor boy. PANDEF, he says, the worst organization. So in that kind of scenario, your peace-building effort has failed as a president. What I had expected of President Tinubu, and I would juxtapose that to what he did in Lagos, in mediating in the Lagos speakership brouhaha, was that he should have called Wike and Fubara to a closed-door session. 3 of them. He is a godfather himself. And this is all about godfather politics. And he's older than Wike. Wike has not produced, has not replicated, has no pedigree when you are talking of Tinubu, the Jagaban of Bogu. Wike has only produced senators and House of Reps and perhaps only one governor. Tinubu has produced governors across Southwest. From Lagos, you cannot talk of emergence of Raouf Aregbesola without Tinubu. You cannot talk of John Kayo de Fayemi in Ekiti without Tinubu. You cannot talk of even Olusegun Mimiko in Ondo. Despite being in Labour Party, Tinubu contributed to his success at the tribunal to wrestle his mandate. Then, of course, Lagos, all successive governors in Lagos. So what am I saying? Tinubu has seen it all in terms of godfather politics, and could just have called for Wike and said, look, yes, I know this guy has betrayed you, but we can still teach him a lesson for 2027, but manage him for the time being. That is a political solution the president is not facilitated. Even there has not been public reprimand or caution for all the rhetorics that Wike has been making. And I found that very curious, which is why many people believed, rightly or wrongly, that the president his mediation is lopsided.
Yeah, was this a classic case of giving a dog a bad name in order to hang it? Because the president was quite scathing of Governor Fubara in his nationwide address
yesterday.
And does that make the whole thing rather distasteful if you consider, who is at a loss here in terms of what this means politically for Rivers State?
Exactly. I mean, even when you listen to Attorney General, he was very quick to pick on what Fubara said, but never talked about what Wike said. And Wike has routinely been addressing live telecast to make scathing and uncomplimentary remarks on everybody he has divergent opinion with. Even Abechi, that has now turned to be a Democrat today, what effort did Amechi, as a former governor and as an elder, what effort has he made at mediation? Every one of them is playing politics. Odili is playing politics. And that's why my second option is that, okay, assuming without conceding, the president is biased, there is another pathway to peace. The National Peace Commission, under the leadership of former head of state, Abdullahi Abubakar, could facilitate another mediation. Abdullahi Abubakar, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, bring in General Yakubu Gowon, bring in Chief Emeka Yauku. Even if it's this four, and then invite the FCT minister and the governor to a meeting here in Abuja.
You think the president or the administration went to the nuclear option too soon?
Exactly. They pressed the nuclear button too soon. That's why I said the situation hasn't matured. You have not exhausted all the dialogue options.
But as you would know, Mr. Jide Ojo, a lot of Nigerians would say prevention is better than cure.
Yes, I do agree. But in this particular instance, okay, the prevention should have been, the president claimed to have intelligence about people wanting to break pipelines. What preventive measure did he take? But I believe his intelligence should have told him that these people were hell-bent on removing the governor democratically or undemocratically. And look at the plot. Let me put this very succinctly. Wike and Fubara had a deal behind closed door ahead of 2023 general election that I will make you a governor, but these are the terms and conditions. It may well not be written, it could be a gentleman's agreement. What brought all of this about? Wike consistently said Fubara wanted to take over the political structure. It's not even money, structure.
As far as we know.
As far as we know.
Right.
But we do know, and people do say that almost everyone working with Fubara were planted or appointed for him by Wike. Now, he wanted to break free after 6 months, and that was one. But Fubara took a wrong approach to breaking free by okay, you heard that you are going to be impeached. The next thing, whether through his tacit approval or not, there was a fire incident on the assembly, River State Assembly. Then the next thing you did was to go and demolish. And you never provided alternative place of meeting for the assembly. That is not only diversionary, it was cowardly, it was uncalled for. That you want to, because you want to preempt and prevent your impeachment, you now decided that you have to demolish the symbol of another institution of democracy.
If all the parties weren't acting in good faith from the get-go, or at least when the fallout began, how does this current situation help the president, especially against the backdrop of the 2027 elections? Because a lot of what's been happening right now has been linked to the alignments and realignments ahead of 2027. How does the current situation help the president if he's trying to get re-elected in 2027?
And that's why people have said, although I do not agree with those who felt that, oh, if you suspended Fubara, you should suspend Wike. No, the apple and oranges are what we are talking. Wike is not elected. Wike is appointed. So
doesn't that make it easier for the president?
No, it doesn't. Wike has a mandate to fix Abuja. If he's suspended for 6 months, do you know what the opportunistic, those whom he's been quote and unquote dealing with in FCT will ensure that he never get back. You know? And the president doesn't want to lose momentum. The argument in some quarters is that president wanted Wike for 2027 purpose, first to win FCT overwhelmingly. You know, he didn't win even up to 25% in FCT, which is part of the ground that the opposition challenges victory. Then to also retain victory in Rivers. That was why the president seems to be pampering Wike. But I think as a father to all, as somebody, I mean, look at the pedigree of the president, as I was saying. As a godfather, he has produced number 2 citizen. To his credit, openly, he said, look, Yemi Osinbajo, I was the one that nominated you. There was a book written for Buhari. I think somebody was trying to put the history the other way. And he came out openly to say, look, You are my candidate. So if somebody has produced number 2 citizen, many governors, many senators, many people in high places, then he should be able to now see beyond what the...
So you think this is a political misstep on the president's part?
In my own view, it is. But it may well be that he has his own game plan. 6 months is a lot of time, but 6 months, the president was very smart in doing one thing, making sure that the assembly did not survive it. Because if he had only put the governor and the deputy governor on suspension and allow the state assembly to function, as was the case in Plateau, in Ekiti, and I think in Oyo and a couple of others, it will have been patently clear that, oh, this is a victory for the Wike camp. But the fact that both the danger that I see is that you have more or less suspended 2 democratic institutions, 2 arms of government out of 3. Now, this person you have brought as a sole administrator, the Constitution does not give permission for any part of the country to be governed by sole administration, except wartime. And we are not in wartime. So this thing was preemptive. What I would have expected was to exhaust the dialogue option. Like I said, 2 things. He should have called Wike, Fubara, and himself, locked themselves up, and hear first what the issues are, and try to mediate. If that fails, call eminent Nigerians, I've mentioned names, and let them mediate. If the 2 failed, then you can use your last card, which is the option of state of emergency.
The deed has been done. However, there is one hurdle before the president, even though many people don't consider it a hurdle, the National Assembly. Do you think they can salvage this situation? Or do you think it's just going to be another formality? Because he always gets what he wants with this National Assembly. The national anthem, the tax reform bills, he gets what he wants. Is this just going to be yet another green light for the president in terms of what's happening in Rivers?
My gut feeling is he may get it. The reason being that if it were 2023, as at 2023, when APC does not have overwhelming majority, not when they don't have 2/3, it may have been more difficult. But look at the gale of defections from opposition, Labour Party, from PDP, from NMPP. It has been one-way traffic to APC. I don't know what the numbers read now. I know for APC members, none of them would have voted against this because of 2027.
Do you expect it to be a voice vote?
No. There is no 2-way about it.
And they said 2/3, so they have to put their name.
It has to be, you have to count.
Yeah.
And that's why they cannot take the voting today, because they don't know what they will mean. So what will likely happen in overnight is a lot of lobbying and collection of signatures. So they will have started doing their, people will have been sent out to make sure that they get signatures and whatever it will take, so that the president is not humiliated. Because if they fail to get that 2/3 and this falls flat on the president's face, it has consequences for future events, and it will mean that the president read the situation wrongly.
Right. Okay. Finally, in a minute, if you can, the Attorney General of the Federation said something quite aggressively to the governors, I suppose, whoever is listening. He said this is going to send a clear message that, when the Supreme Court said do this, you don't violate it, alluding to what Governor Fubara did, even in the build-up to the particular situation. But some would say the administration has cherry-picked what court orders to follow here and there, because it's been 8 months since the Supreme Court delivered that verdict about local government autonomy, and to date, nothing has happened. What do you think the other governors are reading into this development, especially having read the PDP Governors Forum's reaction to this? Finally.
My brother, the law is for your enemy, exception is for your friends. And that's exactly what the situation is. Cherry picking. even the issue of defections and declaration of seat vacant, you could see how many people have defected into APC. Which of them have had their seats declared vacant by the Speaker or by the President of the Senate? But that's where the power lies. Even if INEC chairman knows that this is my rep, he cannot declare and go and conduct by-election. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a very dicey situation because we are in a pre-election season. And every permutation and thinking is about 2027. So I think my learned sake, Attorney General and Minister of Justice need to tread very carefully. He has a pedigree, he has a name to protect. This whole issue of towing the line of whatever the whims and caprices of the president, he is supposed to be neutral, which is why people are calling for separation of that office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice from Attorney General of the Federation as separate from Minister of Justice, because this politicking and all of that, sometimes it's very obfuscating or very confusing for them to be dispassionate and to be apolitical. But by and large, we wait to see in the coming days and weeks what the political temperature of Rivers and Nigeria will be.
Time will definitely tell. Interesting times indeed. Interesting times for Nigeria's democracy and political leadership. Mr. Jide Ojo, as always, thank you very much for the expert analysis on this one. I appreciate you for stopping by tonight.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Keep safe.
Okay. That's our show for you tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow live at 8 p.m. exclusive as always on Trust TV. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you very much for joining us. Good evening.